Ancient riverbank platforms were built with stones and timbers from impossibly distant lands. These mysterious structures, found across the globe, defy our basic assumptions about early human societies and their capabilities. By the end of our journey, you will see human history through an entirely new lens, one where ambition and ingenuity reached further than we ever imagined. Why would a civilization move mountains, quite literally, to place a single stone far from home? And what forgotten knowledge allowed them to achieve such staggering logistical feats? What does our own drive to build lasting monuments say about us today? These structures are far more than simple piles of stone by the water's edge. Picture a raised, level surface carefully constructed along a riverbank, its foundation made from a specific type of granite that does not exist anywhere within hundreds of miles. This is the essence of the anomaly. The defining characteristic is not the platform itself, but the undeniable foreignness of its core ingredients. Local materials were often ignored in favor of stones, timbers, or even specially fired bricks that originated in distant quarries and forests, sometimes over incredibly difficult terrain. This was a deliberate, costly choice. It would be like building a modern patio, not with concrete from the local hardware store, but with marble slabs personally shipped from a quarry in another country. The effort involved is staggering to contemplate. Why go to such extraordinary lengths? These platforms are not confined to one continent or culture. Similar structures with imported stones appear in the dense Amazon rainforest, where vast rivers were the highways of their world, and in the ancient river valleys of China, where civilizations flourished. The consistent thread is this inexplicable rejection of the local and the embrace of the distant. This shared behavior across the globe signals something profound about human ambition, forcing us to ask what powerful motivation could possibly justify such a monumental undertaking. From the life-giving waters of the Nile to the mighty currents of the Mississippi, this peculiar practice left its mark. In Egypt, the great river's banks are lined with temples and landing stages constructed with immense granite blocks. Yet the nearest source for that specific pink granite is in Aswan, a journey of over 500 miles to the south against the Nile's prevailing current. Imagine the coordination required to move these colossal stones such a vast distance, all to place them precisely where the river met the land. Far across the world, along the Mississippi River system, another mystery unfolds. Earthen platforms and ceremonial mounds built by sophisticated cultures contain worked copper that originated from mines near the Great Lakes, hundreds of miles away. This was not a simple trade in small ornaments. This was the deliberate incorporation of a foreign material into the very foundation of their most important riverside structures. Meanwhile, in the lush landscapes of Southeast Asia, ancient riverbank shrines are built with stones hauled from remote, mountainous interiors, a logistical puzzle that challenges our understanding of early commerce and belief. This is not a collection of isolated coincidences. It is a pattern, a recurring theme written into the landscape by cultures that had no contact with one another. What powerful common thread could possibly connect the ambitions of the pharaohs, the mound builders of North America, and the temple architects of Cambodia? The global footprint of these sites tells us we are not looking at a local tradition, but at a fundamental human behavior, one that demanded extraordinary effort for a purpose we are only beginning to grasp. To unravel this mystery, we must now travel back in time to the very origins of this fascinating and perplexing building tradition. The timeline of these structures stretches back to the very dawn of settled human life. During the Neolithic period, the first riverbank platforms were likely humble affairs, simple wooden decks or packed earth shelves that gave fishing and gathering communities stable access to the water's edge. Their materials were purely local, born of immediate necessity. But as centuries turned into millennia, something profound changed. These functional sites began to transform, evolving in scale and purpose into the foundations of bustling trading posts, imposing defensive walls, and sacred ceremonial centers. This evolution in function is inextricably linked to a crucial shift in their very substance. The deliberate choice to use foreign materials often emerges in the archaeological record alongside the rise of social hierarchies. When a society began to stratify, with chieftains, priests, or kings rising to power, the local log or nearby stone was no longer sufficient. A leader's authority could be physically cemented by using granite from a quarry 500 miles upstream or copper from a distant mountain range. This was far more than a practical building decision. It was a powerful, unspoken statement. By incorporating materials from a far-off land, a ruler was demonstrating a godlike command over vast trade networks, loyal labor forces, and the very landscape itself. The platform was no longer just a place by the river. It became a symbol, its meaning woven into the incredible journey of the stones that formed it. This historical arc, from simple necessity to complex symbol, sets the stage for a deeper question. What was it about these specific, far-traveled materials that made them worth such a staggering investment of human effort? The sheer weight of these stones tells a story far beyond their mass. Consider the enigma of a riverbank platform in Britain, built not with local sandstone, but with distinctive bluestones sourced from the Preseli Hills in Wales, a grueling land and river journey of over 150 miles. This was not a random selection. The specific bluestone possesses remarkable durability and a striking spotted appearance, qualities that may have been seen as magical or imbued with spiritual power. Its unique acoustic properties, producing a distinct metallic ring when struck, could have made it sacred for ceremonial use. The practical benefits are clear. A platform built from this stone would endure for ages, but the spiritual motivation likely provided the irresistible force needed to move mountains, or at least multi-ton rocks. The logistics of this operation are staggering to comprehend. Without wheels or modern machinery, moving these colossal stones required a masterpiece of social organization and engineering ingenuity. It speaks of a society with specialized knowledge, from experts who understood how to quarry the stone without fracturing it, to engineers who devised systems of rollers, sledges, and rafts to navigate the challenging terrain. The choice was a profound declaration. By incorporating a stone from a distant, almost mythical landscape, the builders were not just constructing a platform. They were permanently embedding a piece of that distant power into their own center, creating a monument that testified to their reach, their beliefs, and their sheer determination. Yet stone was only one part of this ancient recipe for monument building. The very same drive led cultures to seek out another resource, one that grew in distant forests rather than being quarried from distant hills. While stone endures for millennia, wood tells a more fragile story. It decays, leaving behind only spectral evidence in the earth, a pattern of darkened soil and chemical signatures where mighty posts once stood. Yet through modern science, we can read this ghostly script. Archaeologists analyzing these subtle traces sometimes make a startling discovery. The wood used was not local. A platform built in a cool European forest might be framed with the dense, dark timber of a tropical jungle. A structure on a windswept coast could rest on beams cut from ancient trees deep in a continental interior. This was not a matter of convenience. It was a deliberate quest for exotic timber, driven by properties that local wood simply could not offer. Certain hardwoods possessed a legendary resistance to rot and water, making them ideal for structures perpetually kissed by river spray. Others were chosen for their intricate grain, a natural artistry, or for aromatic resins that would perfume the air during important ceremonies. This choice transformed a functional platform into a sensory experience, engaging sight, smell, and even touch. But the significance went far beyond the physical. By incorporating wood from a distant, perhaps almost legendary land, the builders were weaving a narrative of connection into their very architecture. The platform became a tangible piece of a far-off world, a place of mythic forests and powerful spirits. Its very presence on the local riverbank imbued the site with an otherworldly prestige, a direct link to the unknown. To procure a single log from a forest hundreds of miles away required more than just a long journey. It demanded established trade routes, trusted partnerships, and a system of value that extended far beyond a single community. The presence of that exotic timber is a silent testament to a complex and thriving economic network, a web of human connection that moved not just goods, but ideas and meaning across vast distances. The silent journey of a stone from a distant quarry speaks volumes about the ancient economy. These riverbank platforms were far more than static monuments. They were active terminals in a sprawling web of trade, the very heart of a complex economic engine. Each slab of imported granite or beam of exotic timber was a high-value commodity, a status symbol whose worth was magnified by every mile it traveled. Acquiring such materials was a monumental undertaking in diplomacy and logistics. It required negotiating with distant communities who controlled the source, establishing trust across cultural divides, and organizing the safe passage of incredibly precious cargo. This was not a simple barter for everyday goods. It was the ancient equivalent of a multinational corporation securing a rare mineral for a flagship product, a process that moved not only physical objects but also knowledge, beliefs, and innovations along the same routes. The construction site itself became a hive of economic activity. It demanded the skills of expert quarrymen, the ingenuity of boatwrights to craft vessels capable of carrying colossal loads, and the strength of countless laborers. Local economies would have thrived, supporting the entire supply chain from procurement to final placement. When we see one of these platforms today, we are not just looking at a cleverly arranged pile of rocks. We are seeing the frozen footprint of a vibrant, interconnected marketplace, a testament to the fact that even in antiquity, grand visions were powered by a thriving and far-reaching economy. This economic reality forces us to reconsider the very purpose of these sites. If they were such vital hubs of commerce and cultural exchange, then their location was absolutely critical. Why were they always built right at the water's edge, and what hidden advantages did this specific position provide? Moving a 10-ton block of stone across a continent was a symphony of coordinated effort. Theories suggest the journey began with sledges, massive wooden platforms dragged over carefully prepared pathways of greased log rails. Teams of workers would have hauled on ropes, their movements synchronized by rhythmic chants or drum beats, turning an impossible task into a managed step-by-step process. But the true magic happened when they reached the river. Here, the challenge shifted from brute force to brilliant engineering. Builders likely constructed enormous rafts, floating the stones on the very waterways that would later define their final resting place. They may have even waited for seasonal floods, harnessing the river's own increased power to carry their precious cargo on the final leg of its epic voyage. This was not a struggle against nature, but a partnership with it. Success required an intimate, generational knowledge of the environment, understanding the subtle shifts in currents, the direction of prevailing winds, and even the migration patterns of animals that could be used to scout safe passages. This intricate dance of manpower and environmental wisdom points to a society with remarkable social cohesion. A shared vision and a clear chain of command were essential to keep hundreds, perhaps thousands, of individuals working in concert for months or even years. The logistical planning on display from quarry to riverbank represents a level of collective intelligence and problem solving that truly rivals modern engineering projects. All of this human ingenuity, however, was built upon a foundation of immense physical effort, raising profound questions about the people who provided that labor. The silent stones along the riverbank hide a chorus of countless voices. The sheer scale of these constructions points to a mobilization of entire communities, a feat that reshaped the very fabric of their society. We must ask, what was life like for the individuals who moved these mountains? Was their labor a communal act of faith, a shared duty to the gods, or was it a demand from a rising class of chieftains and priests? The evidence carved into the landscape suggests a society with a clear hierarchy, one organized enough to coordinate thousands of people and sophisticated enough to support specialists, from engineers who designed transport systems to quarry workers who understood the grain of the stone. This level of coordination required a stable agricultural surplus. Farmers had to produce enough food not only for themselves, but also for the armies of laborers and skilled craftsmen who devoted their lives to these monumental works. The project would have become a central pillar of the economy and a powerful unifying force, giving everyone a common purpose. Yet this same unity could also create deep social divisions, drawing a clear line between those who planned the work and those who performed it. The spiritual significance of the platforms likely played a crucial role in justifying this immense effort. If the act of building was itself a sacred duty, a path to communal blessing or cosmic order, then the backbreaking labor could be framed as a noble and necessary service. The legacy of these workers is not recorded in written histories, but it is permanently etched into the riverbank, a testament to their collective strength and the complex society that harnessed it. This human foundation raises an even deeper question about the purpose of these sites, a question that leads us directly to the powerful beliefs that fueled such incredible devotion. A river was far more than a source of life, it was a living threshold. In the worldview of countless ancient societies, these flowing waters marked the boundary between the world of the living and the realm of spirits, deities, and ancestors. Building a platform upon this liminal space was an act of profound spiritual significance, but constructing it with stones from a distant mountain or timbers from a mythical forest transformed it into something even greater, a true conduit between worlds. The materials themselves were believed to be vessels carrying the sacred essence of their place of origin. A granite block from a revered quarry was not just stone, it was a piece of that holy mountain, its power physically transplanted to the river's edge. This practice wove the local site into a vast cosmic geography, connecting the community directly to the spiritual forces of distant lands. These platforms became theaters for the most important rituals. They were stages for offerings to river deities, places for ceremonies to honor ancestors, and sacred ground where priests or shamans might seek visions. The very act of building was likely a form of worship in itself, a communal endeavor to create order out of chaos and to align the human world with the cycles of the cosmos. Many of these structures are precisely oriented to capture the light of the solstice sun or the rising of a specific star, suggesting the platform served as a monumental calendar and observatory. The choice of foreign materials was not merely symbolic, it was functional in a spiritual sense. These stones and woods were the perfect conductors for the spiritual energy that flowed at the boundary between water and land, earth and sky. They amplified the sacredness of the site, making it a focal point where the human and the divine could truly meet. This deep, ceremonial purpose helps explain the otherwise illogical effort behind their construction, revealing that for their builders, these were not just projects, they were portals. The precise orientation of these platforms reveals a mind attuned to the movements of the heavens. Many are not simply placed for a pleasing view of the river, but are carefully aligned to capture the first ray of the solstice sun or to frame the rising of a specific star cluster. This was architecture in dialogue with the cosmos. The selection of foreign materials takes on a new dimension within this celestial framework. A specific stone, perhaps one with a high quartz content that sparkles in the moonlight, might have been deliberately sought from a distant quarry because it was seen as the earthly embodiment of the moon itself. Its journey to the riverbank was not just a logistical feat, it was a ritual act bringing a piece of the lunar essence to a place designed to commune with it. This transforms our understanding of the entire structure. It was not merely a temple, it was a meticulously calibrated instrument, a sacred machine designed to harness the energies of the universe. Every component, from the foundational stone to its precise alignment, worked in concert. The platform served as a massive calendar, marking the passage of seasons essential for agriculture, and as an observatory, allowing a learned class to track celestial cycles with astonishing accuracy. This points to the existence of a specialized group of sky watchers, individuals who devoted their lives to observing, recording, and predicting the rhythms of the sun, moon, and stars. Their knowledge was not abstract, it was literally set in stone, guiding the construction of these riverbank portals where the earth met the sky and the human world touched the divine. The sheer intellectual achievement required for this celestial engineering forces us to reconsider the very fabric of these early societies. What other profound understandings of the natural world have been lost to time, and how might the legacy of this ancient wisdom still echo in the most unexpected places around us today? These master planners were more than just builders, they were the keepers of a profound and secret knowledge. Imagine the mind capable of visualizing a finished platform, not just as a structure, but as a complex puzzle whose pieces were scattered across a continent. This individual understood that a specific granite from a northern quarry would withstand freeze-thaw cycles far better than local sandstone. They knew that a certain tropical hardwood would not warp in the humid river air. This was not guesswork, it was a deep, empirical science developed over generations. The priestly architect looked at the same river and saw a celestial highway, timing construction phases with planetary alignments and selecting materials believed to channel spiritual energy. These two roles, the engineer and the priest, were often fused into one person, a revered figure who could speak the languages of both physics and faith. Their authority came from this unique duality, the ability to calculate the load-bearing capacity of a stone raft while also interpreting the will of the river gods. The plans they conceived were grand visions that unified their entire society, giving thousands of people a shared purpose that was both practical and divine. The techniques they pioneered, from lever systems to celestial navigation for transport, were likely closely guarded secrets passed only to a select few apprentices. This was knowledge with immense power, the power to command resources and shape the very landscape. The survival of their methods depended on this chain of oral tradition, a fragile thread connecting one generation of masters to the next. When that thread was cut, the knowledge vanished into the earth, leaving behind only the magnificent, silent stones as a testament to a genius we can only partially reconstruct. The very stones themselves hold the secrets of their assembly. Looking closely at these ancient riverbank platforms, you find no trace of mortar or metal clamps holding them together. Instead, the stones are locked in place by their own geometry, carved with intricate grooves and tenons that fit together like a colossal, three-dimensional puzzle. This mastery of interlocking construction created structures so resilient they have withstood millennia of floods and earthquakes. The builders treated stone not as an inert block, but as a material with a personality, understanding its grain, its weaknesses, and its hidden strengths. They developed methods to shape it with an almost supernatural precision, using tools and techniques that remain largely a mystery to us today. How did they achieve such flawless seams with what we assume were simple stone hammers and abrasives? The sheer perfection suggests a level of craftsmanship and a repository of knowledge that has simply vanished from history. This same genius extended to wood. Even though the timbers have long since decayed, the post holes and stone sockets they left behind reveal the ghostly outlines of complex joinery, sophisticated woodworking that would have required specialized tools and a deep, intuitive knowledge of how different woods behave under stress and moisture. Some of the methods they used are so unique that modern engineers struggle to replicate their effectiveness with the same basic technology. This points to a forgotten technological landscape, a world where solutions were born from centuries of direct observation and trial and error. The absence of these techniques from the historical record is deafening. It suggests that this was not common knowledge, but a highly specialized craft, passed down through generations of master builders in a sacred chain of oral tradition. When that chain was broken through social upheaval or the passing of the last practitioner, the techniques disappeared into the silence. This loss forces us to look beyond conventional explanations. Could these builders have harnessed forces we are only beginning to rediscover? There are persistent, though highly speculative, theories about the use of resonant sound, of specific frequencies that might have temporarily made stone easier to move or shape. Other ideas point to the possibility of plant-based chemical compounds that could soften granite, allowing it to be molded before hardening again. While these concepts reside on the fringes of archaeology, their enduring appeal highlights the profound gap between what we see these cultures achieved and how we believe they could have done it. The true answer likely lies in a combination of extreme skill and empirical secrets we have yet to uncover. The most compelling evidence for their success, however, is not in a lost manuscript, but in the enduring silence of the platforms themselves, standing as a permanent challenge to our understanding of the past. Deep in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, the concept of foreign materials takes on a surprising new form. Here, along the winding riverbanks, archaeologists uncover platforms not of imported stone, but of a mysterious, dark earth. This is Terra Preta, a super soil so rich and fertile it stands in stark contrast to the region's naturally thin, nutrient-poor soils. This earth did not occur naturally. It was engineered by human hands, a sophisticated composite of charcoal, broken pottery, food waste, and compost. The true marvel is not the movement of a physical object across a continent, but the transfer of a revolutionary idea. The foreign material, in this case, was the knowledge itself, the intellectual recipe for creating this life-sustaining soil. These riverbank platforms became the foundation for thriving agricultural hubs and vibrant residential centers, allowing communities to flourish in an environment that would otherwise challenge long-term settlement. This represents a different kind of ancient logistics, one that traded not in stones but in sustainable wisdom. The builders of these platforms were not importing granite. They were importing a profound understanding of soil science and ecology. This knowledge was their most valuable commodity, a technology that transformed the landscape itself. It demonstrates that the drive to enhance a sacred space with something special and non-local could be as much about intellectual resources as it was about physical ones. The legacy of Terra Preta is a powerful reminder that the greatest monuments are not always made of stone, but can be built from the very ground beneath our feet, enriched by the ingenuity of the human mind. Along the windswept coast of Brittany, the thousands of stones at Karnak stand in silent, orderly rows. While many of these menhirs were sourced locally, the largest and most prominent are crafted from a distinct foreign granite, quarried from sources over 60 kilometers away. This was not a random selection. This specific granite is exceptionally hard and resistant to the coastal salt and wind, a material chosen with a clear, long-term vision for permanence. Transporting these colossal stones across such a distance was a monumental task in itself, likely involving a combination of sledges, rollers, and perhaps even rafts to cross river estuaries. The sheer effort invested in moving them speaks to their immense importance. Within the grand ceremonial landscape, these imported stones were not scattered randomly. They often mark the focal points of the alignments, the platforms that may have served as stages for rituals or the entrances to significant burial mounds. Their foreign nature likely designated them as sacred, setting them apart for the most powerful purposes. They may have been physical claims to authority, their distant origins connecting elite lineages to the wider spiritual world, or perhaps they were seen as vessels for specific deities who demanded a stone from a particular hallowed ground. This practice at Karnak reveals a profound selectivity. It was not about replacing all local stone, but about strategically incorporating the foreign to elevate the sacred, creating a permanent physical hierarchy within the landscape that echoed the social and spiritual order of the people who built it. The journey of this copper was a pilgrimage in itself. Traveling 1,000 miles from the Great Lakes, the raw material was carried across rugged terrain and down winding rivers to reach the heart of the Mississippian world. There it was not melted in fiery forges but transformed through a patient physical art. Skilled artisans would have heated and cooled the metal repeatedly, painstakingly hammering it into intricate ceremonial plates, graceful ear spools, and thin sheathing meant to adorn the most sacred spaces. This was not a process of mass production, but an act of devotion, a slow ritual that imbued the object with care and intention. The final product, gleaming with a distinctive rose-gold hue, would have been a breathtaking sight against the dark earth of the platform, a piece of captured sunlight placed at the water's edge. Its value was unquestionable, but it was a value measured in more than rarity. The copper's origin in the distant, cool north endowed it with a powerful symbolism. That direction was often associated with the realm of ancestors, with celestial forces, or with mythical waters of creation. By incorporating this material into their riverbank platforms, the Mississippian people were not just displaying wealth. They were physically connecting their ceremonial center to a legendary geography, drawing the power of that far-off, mythic north directly into their world. The platform became a point of convergence where the local river met a distant spiritual landscape, all unified by the enduring glow of a metal that had traveled an entire continent to find its purpose. That gleaming copper from the north or that granite from a distant quarry was far more than just a building block. It was a dense, physical language. Every imported stone and timber spoke a silent but powerful message about control. By sourcing materials from faraway lands, a ruler was demonstrating an undeniable command over vast trade routes, valuable resources, and the labor of distant peoples. The platform itself became a permanent declaration of territorial and economic influence, a statement that everyone could see and touch. This practice also broadcasted profound knowledge. It proved that the builders possessed detailed information about remote landscapes and the sophisticated skills needed to navigate to them and return with their treasure. They were masters of geography and logistics, and the platform was their resume, written in stone and wood, but perhaps the most potent symbolism was that of connection. Incorporating a piece of a sacred mountain or a mythical forest directly linked the local riverbank to a much broader, even cosmic, geography. It wove the site into a grand tapestry of spiritual power. A king who built his throne platform with stone from a conquered territory was not just celebrating a victory. He was physically absorbing that land into his own, making a statement of dominance that would outlast his own lifetime. A priest who used wood from a sacred mountain was not merely constructing a stage. He was channeling that mountain's inherent power, creating a direct conduit for divine energy right at the water's edge. This symbolic language was a brilliant tool for social and political order. It visually reinforced hierarchy, justified authority through spiritual connection, and unified the community under a shared, monumental identity. For the common person, the platform was a constant, awe-inspiring reminder of their leaders' reach and their culture's place in a wider, more mysterious world. The silent stones cannot lie to a geologist's trained eye. Through a method called mineralogical fingerprinting, scientists can analyze the precise composition of a granite block and match it with astonishing accuracy to the exact quarry it was torn from centuries ago. This is not guesswork. Each stone carries a unique signature of minerals, a hidden barcode formed over millions of years that points directly back to its source. This scientific testimony provides irrefutable proof of a material's distant origin, transforming a speculative theory about long-distance trade into a hard, geological fact. But the story does not stop with the rocks themselves. The very soil packed around these ancient platforms holds another kind of evidence, one that is microscopic yet equally revealing. Palynology, the study of ancient pollen, allows researchers to sift through earth samples and identify the ghostly presence of plants that never grew in the local environment. Finding the pollen of a tropical hardwood in the soil of a European riverbank is a silent witness to the presence of imported timber, a fleeting biological signature that has outlasted the wood itself. These two disciplines, geology and palynology, act as an objective lens, cutting through legend and assumption to reveal the concrete realities of the past. Their data can illuminate subtle shifts in a civilization's history. Imagine a platform that was first constructed with stones from a quarry to the north, only to have later additions built with a different granite from a southern source. This is not a random change in decoration. It is a material record of shifting political winds, a story of a broken alliance or a new trade partnership, all told through the silent language of stone. These scientific insights challenge our romantic notions, not to diminish the mystery, but to deepen it. They confirm that the incredible journeys we have been imagining were real, and they force us to ask an even more profound question. If we can now trace the physical path of these materials with such precision, what can they tell us about the intellectual world of the people who moved them? The stones have given up the secrets of their origin, but the greater secret of the knowledge required to use them so perfectly remains. Some of these riverbank structures stand as stark contradictions to our historical timelines. A platform built with expertly quarried foreign stone might appear in a region where archaeologists believe the local culture was still in a nomadic, hunter-gatherer phase, lacking the social structure for such an undertaking. This is more than a simple dating error. It is a fundamental challenge to our models of how civilizations develop. The established narrative often assumes a linear path, from simple bands to complex states, with each step logically following the last. These anomalous platforms disrupt that clean progression. They suggest that the capacity for complex organization, sophisticated trade, and monumental engineering might not be a final destination, but a potential that has flickered on and off throughout human history. What if advanced capabilities emerged in one place, only to be lost through environmental change or social upheaval, their techniques fading into myth before being independently rediscovered centuries later in a different part of the world? These sites are not mere footnotes, they are active puzzles that force us to reconsider the very pace and pattern of our past. They remind us that history is not a single, steady climb, but a complex tapestry of brilliant innovations and profound forgetting, where knowledge is as fragile as it is powerful. The silent stones by the water's edge ask us a difficult but essential question. How much of human potential has been lost to the quiet passage of time? And what does that say about the permanence of our own civilization's greatest achievements? The story of these riverbank platforms is far from a closed book. Every year, archaeologists add new pages to this ancient narrative, often with the help of technology that feels like it belongs in science fiction. LiDAR, for instance, uses laser pulses from aircraft to digitally strip away dense forest canopies, revealing the ghostly outlines of man-made structures hidden for centuries below. This eye in the sky has uncovered entire networks of platforms in places like the Amazon and Southeast Asia, sites we never knew existed because the jungle had guarded them so well. Meanwhile, beneath the waves, another frontier is opening up. Underwater archaeology is bringing to light platforms that were swallowed by rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age, or abandoned when a river suddenly changed its course. These submerged sites are time capsules, preserving organic materials like wood and fibers in oxygen-deprived mud, offering a level of detail we rarely find on land. Back in the laboratory, the science of discovery grows ever more precise. Advanced chemical analysis can now detect the faintest molecular signatures of a material's origin. Scientists can analyze the residue on a stone tool and determine it was used to work a specific type of foreign copper, or they can identify isotopic ratios in a piece of pottery that pinpoint the clay source to a single valley hundreds of miles away. Each of these breakthroughs acts like a new key, unlocking a different door to the past. A LiDAR scan might reveal the grand scale of a trading hub, while a chemical test confirms the presence of a rare, imported resin used in ceremony. Sometimes these discoveries beautifully confirm what we had only suspected. Other times they arrive as a complete shock, forcing us to redraw our maps of ancient trade and question our assumptions about early human mobility. This constant state of revelation proves one thing beyond any doubt. The riverbanks of our world still hold countless stories, patiently waiting for the right moment to resurface and change our understanding of history once again. While trade and symbolism offer compelling explanations, the profound mystery of these sites has inevitably given rise to other, more speculative ideas. Some researchers look at the global distribution of these platforms and propose a radical theory that they were not built by independent cultures, but by a single, shared precursor civilization. This hypothetical society, possessing advanced maritime technology, could have traveled the world's rivers and coastlines, leaving behind a common architectural blueprint for raising ceremonial platforms. In this view, the foreign materials are not evidence of long-distance trade, but the signature of a global builder, using the same superior stones and timbers at every site they established. A different, yet equally fascinating, theory casts these structures not as ceremonial centers, but as practical navigation aids. They could have served as highly visible markers for ancient transoceanic voyages, guiding sailors along rivers that acted as highways into a continent's interior. The use of distinctive, imported stone might have been a way to make these platforms stand out unmistakably from the natural landscape, a kind of ancient lighthouse whose light was its very substance. Then there are the more speculative realms of thought, which venture into the possibility of technologies we can no longer comprehend or interactions with intelligences not of this world. These ideas, while standing far outside mainstream archaeology, speak to a fundamental human impulse. When faced with a puzzle of such scale and elegance, our minds naturally reach for the most extraordinary possibilities. They highlight a deep-seated desire to find grand, unifying patterns where our conventional historical models feel incomplete. The enduring power of these platforms lies not just in the stones themselves, but in their ability to provoke this wide spectrum of wonder, encouraging us to keep our minds open to all possibilities, no matter how unconventional they may seem. The enduring silence of these ancient riverbanks is now broken by modern threats. These fragile platforms face a relentless assault from natural erosion, as rising water levels and increasingly severe weather events eat away at their foundations. Urban sprawl and new agricultural projects encroach upon their sacred spaces, while looters seeking a quick profit illegally dig into the sites, destroying priceless archaeological context forever. The race to protect them is a global effort, a complex dance of science and stewardship. Physical stabilization is often the first priority, with experts using careful landscaping and non-invasive supports to reinforce crumbling edges without altering the original structure's appearance. Legal protection is equally vital, with nations working to designate these areas as protected heritage sites, creating a legal shield against unchecked development. Perhaps the most forward-thinking tool is digital archiving. Teams now use high-resolution 3D scanning to create perfect virtual models of every stone and contour. This digital twin becomes an immortal record, allowing researchers to study the site from anywhere in the world and providing a blueprint for potential restoration if the original is ever damaged. But the most crucial element of preservation is often the human one. Local communities are increasingly enlisted as the primary guardians of their own heritage. When people who live near these platforms understand their global significance and are empowered to protect them, the sites gain their most passionate and effective defenders. The ultimate challenge is finding a delicate balance. We must protect these places without making them inaccessible, allowing for continued research and public appreciation. These platforms are a non-renewable cultural resource. Once a site is looted or washed away, the unique story it held is erased from history. Our responsibility is to safeguard these open-air libraries of human ingenuity, ensuring that future generations can still walk these riverbanks and hear the echoes of a past that still has so much to teach us. These ancient riverbanks hold up a mirror to humanity itself. The staggering effort to place a single stone far from home speaks to a fundamental drive within us, a need to create something that outlasts our own brief lives. This is not a modern impulse. It is a timeless thread connecting us to the people who moved these mountains, a shared desire to leave a permanent mark on the world. That platform was their message in a bottle, tossed into the river of time, and we are the ones who have found it. Their actions reveal a profound need to connect with the sacred, to build a gateway between the everyday world and something greater. But perhaps the most powerful lesson is one of collaboration. These projects were not the work of a lone genius or a tyrannical ruler acting alone. They were symphonies of coordinated effort, proving that when a community shares a compelling vision, it can achieve the seemingly impossible. This ancient globalization, this web of trade and knowledge that spanned continents, shows us that interconnection is not a symptom of the modern era. It is a foundational human behavior. The challenges they navigated feel strikingly familiar. They had to manage limited resources, organize diverse groups of people, and solve complex engineering problems, all while adapting to a changing environment. Their solutions, born from patience and a deep understanding of their world, offer us valuable insights. They understood the principles of sustainable resource management, taking only what was needed from distant quarries and forests. They mastered social organization, finding ways to unite thousands toward a common goal. In their story, we can find inspiration for our own. The past is not a closed book. It is a conversation, and these silent stones by the water's edge still have so much to say. Even with all our modern tools and insights, these riverbank platforms guard their deepest secrets closely. We can trace a stone's journey across a continent, but we cannot yet hear the silent reason it was chosen over another rock from a nearby hill. Was it the color, the sound it made when struck, a unique spiritual signature sensed only by the priests, or something else entirely lost to us? The platforms themselves stand as empty stages, and we can only guess at the specific ceremonies that once brought them to life. Were they sites for offerings to appease a river god, for rituals to ensure a good harvest, or for initiations that transformed a young person into an adult member of the community? The profound quiet is a direct result of history's fragility. For many of these cultures, the intricate knowledge of construction techniques, the meanings behind the material choices, and the precise liturgical scripts were never written down. They were carried in the minds of a select few, passed orally from master to apprentice in a sacred chain. When that chain was broken by social collapse, conflict, or the simple passage of time, the knowledge vanished as completely as a whisper on the wind. This loss forces us to confront an even more tantalizing possibility. Could some of these platforms, scattered across the globe, have been more than just independent creations? The recurring theme of imported materials suggests a shared understanding, a common architectural language that might hint at connections we have not yet mapped. Were they nodes in a vast prehistoric network of trade and idea exchange, a web of human connection far more extensive than our current models suggest? These lingering mysteries are not a sign that our investigation has failed. They are its very heart. Every unanswered question is an open invitation, a call to the next generation of archaeologists, geologists, and historians to look closer, to think deeper, and to listen more carefully to the quiet stories still being told by the stones at the water's edge. We are left standing on the shore of a great mystery, humbled by the echoes of ancient ambition. These riverbank platforms, constructed with materials from impossibly distant lands, are far more than archaeological curiosities. They are a profound legacy of human ingenuity and spiritual yearning, a testament to our timeless drive to connect with something larger than ourselves and to leave a mark that endures. Each foreign stone and exotic timber represents a story of connection, a deliberate act of will that wove distant quarries and far-off forests into the very fabric of a local community. These structures challenge the simple narratives we often tell about the past, forcing us to question our assumptions about the limits of early technology, trade, and cultural exchange. They remind us that history is not a linear path but a complex web of brilliant flashes and forgotten knowledge. The enduring enigma of these sites is their greatest gift to us. It keeps the flame of wonder alive, assuring us that the world remains filled with stories waiting to be rediscovered. The past still has profound lessons to teach about collaboration, vision, and our relationship with the world around us. Perhaps the most exciting thought is that this spirit of discovery is not confined to distant lands or academic journals. Consider the history that might lie quietly in your own community, the subtle clues in an old stone wall or a local stream bank that could point to a forgotten chapter. What overlooked mysteries are waiting just outside your door? We would love to hear your thoughts and any local discoveries in the comments below. Join us next time as we venture into another hidden corner of history.